Lee City Center Radio is episode 317, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, November 22nd, 2024. Happy weekend, everyone. I'm coming to you from Connecticut, enjoying my extended Thanksgiving break here with my family. It's been great. Having some fun, and I'm not recording this on my normal equipment, so if it doesn't sound as great as normal, that is why. But usually this method has worked for us in the past, so hopefully it's not too shabby. Got in and spent some time with my folks on the first night, which was very nice, and their puppy Piper, who is a ball of energy and so much fun to hang out with. And then on Thursday, I went to the Mohegan Sun Casino, which is here in Connecticut, to see the Dave Matthews Band. Of course, you've heard me talk about them before. It's my favorite band. The only time I've seen them this year. So unlike last year where I saw them several times, just didn't have a lot of shows around the Charleston area this year. And so couldn't make some of those, longer trips to see them, say, like in Raleigh work. But was glad I could, see them here. And combine it with my trip home. Other than that, haven't done too much. Did go to a barbecue place here, which, this state's not exactly known for barbecue, but Bear's Barbecue is what it's called. It's a smaller chain, but they actually have since opened locations in Asheville. And it's actually really, really good. You never know when you get outside, places that are known for barbecue, how they're going to be. But I really enjoyed it. They have all the typical stuff, pulled pork, brisket, pulled chicken, so on and so forth. But it was very, very good. So if you're ever in Asheville or in Connecticut and see Bear's Barbecue, I definitely recommend it. But enough about that. Let's get into your latest news. One man is dead after being shot by officers during a call in downtown Charleston on Thursday morning. In a release that was sent out on Thursday afternoon, the Charleston Police Department said officers responded to a report of a physical altercation between two men near the intersection of King and Line Streets. The altercation happened around 10 a.m., and when police arrived, they saw the men, in some sort of physical altercation, and one of the men presented a firearm. At that point, police fired on the man. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition, but ultimately died later in the day. Police determined that two of their officers actually fired their weapons, but it appears... Actually, at this time, they don't know who actually struck the man, if not both officers. I'm sure that will come out later. The police were uninjured during the incident, and as of this recording, the subject's ID has not been released. But abnormal, to have a physical altercation at 10 a.m. in downtown Charleston, especially one that leads to a shooting. It's not something you hear every day. If there are any updates, I will be sure to pass them along. We have an update on the Boeing layoffs. You may remember that back in October, the company said that they planned to reduce its total workforce by 10%, but it was unclear how much of that 10%, if any, would include the employees in North Charleston, or if it would be, say, out completely in Washington State, where they have their headquarters. Well, unfortunately, it did include some here in the Charleston area. A newly released state report shows that over 200 Boeing employees in the Charleston area will be out of a job at the start of the new year. Boeing has filed for the permanent layoff of hundreds of employees. This is according to South Carolina's most recent Worker Adjustment and Restraining Notification, also known as WARN, and this is what that report stated. A spokesperson from Boeing by the name of Libba Holland said affected employees were notified last week and will leave the company in mid-January. The WARN report says January 7th is the specific exit date. Eligible employees will get severance pay, career transition assistance, and some health care benefits for up to 3 months after leaving the company. So, certainly sad to know that some folks in our area will be without a job in January, assuming they don't find something before then. Yes, it's nice that they're going to get, severance pay, healthcare benefits for 3 months, and some of the other things I mentioned. That's the least that they should get is all that stuff. So still such a bummer that, that had to happen to 200 people in our community and their families, of course. Hopefully they will all bounce back and find something. If there are any other updates on this situation, of course, I will be here to let you know. Of course, I'm still going to talk about the monkeys here in the next story. 2 more of the primates were captured on Monday. This is according to the Yemassee Police Department. That means the total number of monkeys captured is now 39, with 4 still on the loose. The ones that are still out there are believed to be, kind of hanging out together in an area near the Alpha Genesis facility or, very nearby. That Alpha Genesis is the facility that they broke out of. And what are we approaching now? Has it been 2 weeks already with these monkeys? So these 4 still doing their thing, still avoiding capture, so good for them. They're obviously people at that facility very much still trying to wrangle them in. And once they do, or I should say if they do, of course, we'll pass that on. And now to probably the top story of this episode. National Nancy is at it again. You would think with the election over and Trump winning that maybe she would settle down with some of her, MAGA rhetoric. Obviously a lot of that was for show, to get herself attention and also to, signal to Trump that I'm on your side, so support me. Well, that is not the case. But before we get into what's going on, I'm going to read you a quote from someone, and this is from a couple years ago. So here's the quote, and then I'll go from there. Quote, "I strongly support LGBTQ rights and equality. No one should be discriminated against. I have friends and family that identify as LGBTQ. Understanding how they feel and how they've been treated is important. Having been around gay, lesbian, and transgender people has informed my opinion over my lifetime." That quote is from 2021, so we're talking 3 years ago now, pushing 4 years. And that came from Representative Nancy Mace. She was framing herself as pro-LGBTQ and, at the time, a social moderate. Well, we learned long ago that her claims of being a moderate were BS, and she has gone not just further to the right, she's gone about as far right as you can go. And this, back then she was talking about support for, gay marriage and other topics. Well, she has gone off the rails, at least as it relates to transgender people and their rights. Times have changed, clearly. If you somehow missed this, and I don't know how you could, she has been on this transphobic just meltdown, specifically on Twitter, obviously, her other social media platforms as well, and of course in the media, no surprise there. But what is this all stemming from? Well, Sarah McBride made history when she became the first openly transgender person elected to Congress. She's a Democrat from Delaware, and she's preparing to get going in Washington. Of course, she just won her election this month, but she's kind of being welcomed by, and I use that term sarcastically, by her soon-to-be Republican colleagues who are trying to ban trans women from using women's restrooms in the Capitol. Now, I want to say this first. I know the whole restrooms and sports debate as it relates to transgender people is complicated. It's a newer debate especially for a lot of our country. I would probably say the vast majority of our country is trans rights and transgender people have gotten more of a spotlight over the last few years. We're starting to understand more than we used to as a collective. And it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to grasp and to accept in some cases. And I'm not saying that there isn't a discussion to be had about some of this stuff, about sports, about bathrooms, about how to enforce certain things. Studies may need to be done as it relates to the sports aspect of things, what's required. I'm not saying this is an easy debate. You may even agree with Nancy Mace on this, and that's okay. We can have a discussion on these things. The big problem I have is, and I will detail what's going on here, it's one thing to propose a bill or discuss possibly proposing a bill or asking questions in a respectful manner. At no point during this debate has Representative Nancy Mace, it's not even necessarily a debate, it's been a monologue if you're looking at her social media accounts, has she presented this in a respectful way at all. It has been full of hate, dangerous rhetoric. It's been disgusting. There's a way to bring up these things in a respectful manner. Again, I may disagree with her opinion. You may agree. But if you do so in a respectful manner, you can at least have a healthy debate on this subject. And that is not what's been happening at all. So, on Monday, Representative Mace introduced a resolution that would ban members, officers, and employees of the U.S. House from, quote, using single-sex facilities other than those corresponding to their biological sex, end quote. Mace said that the resolution, which she wants incorporated into the House rules package for the next Congress, is absolutely in response to McBride's imminent arrival. So this is specifically targeted at McBride. Now, that right there might not seem disrespectful. I submit to you, go look at Mace's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Specifically on Twitter, she tweeted in a 24-hour period well over 100 times about this bathroom bill and transgender people, everything about this topic, well over 100 times in 24 hours. That is unhinged behavior to do that. And, I mean, at this point, she's probably well over 200 as she's gotten, understandably, a lot of pushback as it regards to not just the basis of what she's doing, but, again, the rhetoric and the way she's going about it and being called out, because a lot of people think this is just a chance for her to get attention when the attention is currently on, all of Trump's picks for his cabinet. And she doubled down when people started calling her out for her bigotry. And again, I think there's a respectful debate to be had with people without saying they're a bigot just because they're unsure about the sports debate or the bathroom debate. But again, the way she's saying things, there's no other conclusion that you can come to besides bigotry. She has misgendered McBride, which is a big issue. That is being bigoted. That's being hateful when you misgender someone. She has consistently made crass remarks about, men being in women's bathrooms where she references like their genitals. Again, just hateful, bigoted rhetoric that you see online a lot and hear from people, and stuff that should be below someone who is in office, but there's not much that is below Nancy Mace, as we have learned over the years. For her part, McBride took the high road. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially said she's looking forward to coming to Congress. She's not interested in having a bathroom bill debate and just wants to work for the people of Delaware. Great response. Took the high road. Not going to take the bait. Didn't matter. Mace doubled down when she was called out for that bigotry, expanding from wanting to have a resolution just for the U.S. House to all federal facilities. Now, Mace has been framing this as a way to protect women, essentially implying that transgender women really just want to go into the women's restroom to attack women. Obviously, that's not true. They also do this scare everybody tactic where they say a man who identifies as a man will just put on a dress as a ruse to go into the women's bathroom to attack women. Also not a thing that happens. I mean, granted, I'm sure there are, and I know I've seen stories here and there through the years of a man going into a women's restroom, but it's never under the guise of pretending to be trans. These are just men who are sick, and they're not putting up the ruse of, oh no, I'm trans, I'm allowed to be in here. So it's just a ridiculous scare tactic on top of it. Now, even further than that, she said Mace said this is specifically about McBride. So it's not just the general implication. She's specifically implying that McBride just wants to go to the women's room to attack or assault women, which obviously there's been no stories, accusations, proof, anything even remotely close that you could say, well, McBride was accused of attacking someone in a women's room. You know what I mean? There's no basis for this whatsoever, which is disgusting that she would do that, period. But then when you look at who Mace aligns herself with, they all actually have credible accusations of sexual assault, of rape. Some and what I'm talking about are specifically people in Trump world. Donald Trump himself, of course, well documented the amount of women who have accused him of sexual assault. Of course, E. Jean Carroll, the case, he was found liable for sexually assaulting her and is having to pay her for that. The Matt Gaetz situation, which news just broke that he withdrew his name as the Attorney General pick because of accusations of child sex trafficking and statutory rape. Pete Hegseth, who's going to lead the Department of Defense if he's confirmed, has been accused of sexual assault. Elon Musk and many others in Trump world. She aligns herself with all of those people. If she really wants to protect women, she should look at her own party, not everyone, of course, but specifically the MAGA higher-ups. They are the people that women need to be protected from based on if you're just going to use accusations or, in some cases, actually being found guilty or putting or having settlements, hush money, basically, settling out, and making sure they don't talk about what happened. So it just adds that extra layer to this whole debate of this hypocrisy of turning her back on women as it regards to people she aligns herself with politically. Now, in addition to this, Mace will allude to her own rape, sexual assault that happened to her, which she's talked about before, and saying that that's kind of what is, her trauma from that. And I'm not discounting the trauma from that. I'm not saying she's not telling the truth. I fully believe she's telling the truth about that situation. But saying that the trauma from that is what is kind of leading her to be so passionate about this bathroom, situation in Congress. And that's fine. Again, there's a way to mention that without being disrespectful and bigoted. Now, of course, as we learned from her interview with George Stephanopoulos, Mace is allowed to talk about what happened to her, but you are not allowed to ask her any questions about it as it relates to, well, if this horrible thing happened to you and it's traumatic and you need to introduce a bill banning transgender women from the women's restroom, how do you square that side with, again, supporting Trump, Matt Gaetz, Hegseth, Musk, whoever else? How come they get a pass? How come you don't call them out? You can't ask her that. Otherwise, you are trying to shame her. And that's what she said about George Stephanopoulos. You probably remember that whole situation earlier this year. So, needless to say, and don't get me wrong, people on social media, people probably calling her office, there's no doubt in my mind, although I haven't gone through and looked, there's no doubt in my mind that people have crossed the line, not just in this situation, but I'm sure every day people cross the line and, when they're responding to her and things she says online or, again, calling her office or whatever. There's no doubt in my mind, and there's no excuse for that. But people are giving her pushback in more respectful ways, and she is not meeting the moment or meeting people, where they are. On one of her I think it was Facebook, one of her Facebook posts, people would call her out, and her team, because her team runs her account, especially the replies a lot of the time, would just break down her record on immigration, which I didn't understand. So I don't know if this was some weird AI thing they were using and it just was responding to the wrong topic, or if that was her team's way of trying to distract from people calling her out for obvious hypocrisy and bigotry. So the whole thing's been bizarre. But again, on both of her accounts on Twitter, because she has her official representative Nancy Mace account, and then she has her personal account from before she was in office. On both of them, she has just been melting down about this situation, and her rhetoric is ramped up. Again, just crass, misgendering people. It's just been disgusting. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm sure none of you are. And she should be called out for it. Again, in a respectful enough manner. It's okay to be a little disrespectful since she is, but nobody should be crossing that line. That is unacceptable. But she deserves to be called out for this, the hypocrisy, the bigotry. Again, you may be listening and thinking, hey, look, I'm not super comfortable with the idea of a transgender woman in a woman's bathroom. That's okay. I get it. It's for some people, this is a confusing topic. There's a lot that people don't know, and that's okay. And there's a way to have discussions like these in a respectful manner. This is not what's happening. As usual, Mace is way over the line. She's doing this for the attention. And it's been gross seeing the things she's been saying about transgender people. And I encourage you to call her office, tweet, email, send Facebook message, whatever, and call her out for this bigotry and her rhetoric. Not to mention that Wednesday, when this was it's still, don't get me wrong, her meltdown's still happening here on Thursday as I'm recording this. But Wednesday was when this really started to pick up, Tuesday into Wednesday. Wednesday was the Trans Day of Remembrance, a day that we mark every year to remember the trans people who have been murdered just for being trans, being attacked just for being trans. And how does our representative mark that day? Well, by ramping up her rhetoric, misgendering people, being bigoted, targeting these people indirectly and directly, and putting them in danger. And she should be called out for that. And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please rate, review, like, and subscribe. All those things help get this podcast out to other people. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And a big thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode. I hope you have an amazing weekend. I can't believe Thanksgiving week is almost here. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you'll get to spend some time with family next week. Maybe you'll have a Friendsgiving as well, or as an alternative. Regardless, if you're looking for plans this weekend and beyond, go to holycitycenter.com/calendar. And I will be back with you on Monday. Already looking forward to it. But until then, good night and good luck.